Greetings, fellow scientists from the other SCP sites. It is I, Dr. Rise. Today, I shall be showcasing my different SCPs. Our first SCP is SCP-1004, or 10,004. Object class, safe. It is a SCP 10,004. Well, wait, what the freak? Hey, get back in your cell! Containment breach! Containment breach! Get back! Get back in your cell! Okay, got it back in its cell. Anyways, SCP 10,004. It is a well that gives you money daily. Perfect for paying any workers. You know, so that you don't have to get some money out of your wallet. It is very handy. And I kind of wish there was a duplicating ray gun SCP so that I could duplicate this well. But, anyways, enough of that. Next SCP is a pirate zombie. Now, you may think this is no ordinary pirate zombie, but it is a normal pirate zombie. It's just that there's this one SCP in my lab that's making this zombie unordinary. But before the other SCP buffed up this zombie, it was just a zombie with a sword and an eye patch. Pirate zombie. Oh, and I like to call it SCP 9784. Yeah. You can already expect from what it is, you know. It is sentient, so it's gonna, well, you know, it's just gonna maul your. Ah! Now is not the time for me to showcase you. Sorry about that. I got a bit. My mind was being controlled by SCP 11,000. We'll get to him later. Next, we have the Cursed Organ, aka SCP 11,010. Object class, Euclid. Playing one note from this organ. One note will instantly start making it play music, and well, and then after the organ's done playing its music, you will receive fatigue, nausea, a concussion, and you will slowly start decaying. If I had any D-class personnel, I could demonstrate. I mean, hey, technically though, I did have some D-class personnel, but they all died. And when I got some new ones, this SCP killed them all. We'll get to him later. He may not even be a Keter. He may be above Keter. I forgot what the class is because I'm kind of a new doctor. Anyways, next SCP is SCP 12,567. Object class, unknown. It is an egg with feathers. Yeah, that's really it. Next SCP. This SCP, I once thought it was safe, but it's actually Euclid. Well, it could actually be Keter, but no, it's Euclid. I mean, it is the lab of this SCP, my deadliest SCP ever. In fact, it may be the deadliest SCP I've ever seen in my life. But yeah, the next SCP we have is SCP 11,000, also known as the Skeletal Shaman. This skeleton is dangerous as heck. As a matter of fact, I don't think he's Keter. This SCP can buff up any other SCP. They can allow them to go through walls, and it can destroy them, and no other SCP even tries to attack them, which is strange. And he doesn't try to attack them either. I mean, except for this one unique hybrid, or this one unique version of 096 I managed to find, which was a female version, although that could have been a lure. As a matter of fact, it was a lure. This SCP is very clever and somehow knew how to lure me. You can probably read our minds or so. In fact, who knows? This SCP may be the start, or maybe the reason why every other SCP exists. This could be the god of SCPs, but it's currently pretending to be a normal SCP. But for now, we'll get to that later. Next up, we have SCP 10,957, the Golden Chalice. Object class, Euclid. This Golden Chalice is cursed. If you pick it up, it'll fill itself with wine. If you place it down, it will empty itself of wine. If you spill the wine, then a block of solid wine will encase your head in an instant and start to suffocate you and drunken you, as that block of wine will also start to grow spikes that will stab into you and pour some alcohol into you. Yeah. Don't do drugs, kids. The wine, if you drink it, however, your flesh, all of it, will just burn off very quickly, as a matter of fact. And once it's all burned off, your bones will just detach from themselves and they'll fall into a pile of bones, and then they'll disappear. This chalice is very interesting. I mean, I thought it'd just be one of those SCPs that just, gives you diseases. But no, actually, it does more than that. It's quite interesting. But, anyways, it is time we move on to our last SCP. Well, second to last SCP. We have the heat crystal. Sorry, we have SCP 13,313. Object class, heater. This SCP is, well, a cluster of hot crystal shards. Hot enough to turn you into ashes. These are the ashes of D class personnel 9,499. Yeah. Poor fella. He turned into this magma pile of ashes. It's not just any pile of ashes, it's a magma. As a matter of fact, it's still hot. In fact, who knows? These ashes could turn into another crystal cluster. It could be like the Blood Ice SCP. But we may never know. Now then, it is time. Oh, by the way, here's our final SCP, which is SCP 11,002. The skeletal witch doctor's, teddy bear. His teddy bear allows him to conduct his mojo, aka his witch doctor magic, at a farther range when he's enclosed in a cell, and it's what's allowing him to telepathically give this zombie power. That is an Avengers level threat. Oh my gosh! Oh my gosh, they're free! They're free! They're free! Ah, call. This is Dr. Fries. Send in reinforcements immediately. Holy crap, they just came out of nowhere! I'm Dr. Fries. And I will, and I'll see you next time. If I'm alive, I'll send you the coordinates to this site location. Okay, bye.